Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, my name is Sharon and I'm an incoming trainee clinical psychologist. If you've clicked on this video, then you're probably deciding whether you should apply to the DClin side this year. But before we get into all of that, if this isn't your first time watching any of my videos, then please subscribe. It means the world to me, and even if you're new around here, then hit the subscribe button and turn the notification bell on, because I've got loads of DClin Psy related content coming soon. Now, with all that being said, let's get into the video. So personally, I don't think anyone ever feels completely ready to apply to the doctorate, because it's quite a daunting task, and also you're applying to be a trainee. And a trainee isn't a fully qualified clinical psychologist. You're training to become a clinical psychologist. With that in mind, how can you be ready to be a trainee when I think that's going to look very different for each person and for every course, to be honest? When people begin training, they're all at different levels. Some people may have way more experience in research in comparison to clinical, and vice versa. So it's not really an even playing field when people get onto the doctorate. But despite all of those things, I think there are a few helpful conversations and questions that we can have with ourselves and with our friends to help us to decide whether we are actually ready or whether we feel mentally prepared to go on this journey. So the first question that I want you to ask yourself is, do you meet the entry requirements? So have a look on the Leeds Clearinghouse, have a look in the alternative handbook, and look at the grades and clinical experience required before getting onto the course. If you don't have the minimum requirements, then you can't really apply. That's one thing that there's no wiggle room on. So say for example you don't have the grade, say for example you got a 2-2 at your undergrad. Well, some courses now are doing contextual admission, so definitely have a Google search on that and see what courses are allowing that. But think about whether doing a master's is a viable option for you in order to bump up your academic experience. In terms of not having enough clinical experience, that tends to be something that comes with time. Some courses ask for X amount of years paid experience. So of course, if you don't meet the minimum requirements, then you would get that paid experience for however many years you needed. And when it comes to experience, make sure you're going for quality rather than quantity. So one thing I've noticed is that people jump around jobs quite a lot, and some people say that it's really good to get experience in all different, services, populations and whatnot. But I actually disagree, and I think going on this journey I've realised that you don't need that. I think people looking at applications and on the interview actually value your quality of experience and what you've learned from those experiences. So while it could be helpful to explore what services you're interested in, I don't think it's necessary to jump around in order to get that experience to get onto training, because when you're in the interview and when you're answering those questions on the application form, you'll notice that they're not asking, oh, how many different services have you worked for? They're actually asking you to reflect on your experiences, and therefore you need to have high quality experiences. I didn't hold that many clients right at the beginning of my post. I had very low level interventions, and now that my supervisor has trusted me more, I've learnt more, I've become accustomed to the service that I'm working in, I understand more about using psychological models, I'm now able to get that really high quality experience. So if I had, say, jumped ship at 1 year and moved to a different AP post, I wouldn't have this trust and I wouldn't have this knowledge, and therefore I wouldn't have this high quality experience. And this leads me nicely on to the second thing that I want you to think about, which is whether you have the skills and knowledge in order to be a good trainee. So even if you have the minimum experience that the course has listed, sometimes that doesn't necessarily give you the knowledge and the skill set to be a trainee. So some courses don't even mention the amount of years that you have to have clinical experience. So say if you are fresh out of your undergraduate degree and you think, okay, well, I meet the minimum requirements, so I'm just going to apply. But actually, you going through your undergraduate degree, while that is a very formative experience, has that actually given you the skills and the knowledge to be a trainee clinical psychologist? Or has it given you the skills and the knowledge to be an assistant psychologist? So while you may meet the minimum requirements, you might not actually have the skills and the knowledge to be a trainee. Spend some time reflecting on your own experiences, look at a trainee clinical psychologist job description and see whether you think you have what it takes in order to get through the 3 years. Other things that I think come with time and with working within NHS settings that you can't necessarily get from the minimum criteria is knowledge of how psychology functions within the NHS, understanding pressures on clinical psychologists, understanding the role of a clinical psychologist. So while yes, you may meet the academic and the clinical minimum requirements, you may not have this knowledge and understanding of how clinical psychology functions. So don't only rely on the minimum requirements. I think you need to do some more reflections. Think about whether you do have the knowledge and the skill set. Now, the third thing that I want you to think about is whether you have enough time. Declin Psy application season, now I'm talking from the day that applications open till the last day where everyone finds out if they're on a course or not. That goes from September till June. Now there are some quiet parts, but September to June is a very long time. So September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. That's 10 months. That's actually 10 months. What the heck? September, October, November, December, March. It actually is 10 months. But obviously in between those 10 months, you do have quiet periods where you are waiting for results and whatnot. But do you have enough time to write the application? And then do you have the time to revise for selection tests, if you have to do one? And then do you have enough time to prepare for interviews? And do you have 10 months worth of endurance and energy for this? Now, I understand that some of you may be parents, some of you may be carers, some of you may be holding down multiple jobs. And so I understand that you're always going to have to be juggling time. Sometimes you don't have the liberty to move things about or to drop things, and you know, that's really tough. Now, just to give you some idea of how much time it took for me to go through the application stages and the interview and all of that stuff. I began with my application, of course, and I spent 1 hour after work, not every day, but when it was approaching the application deadline, it was 1 hour after work every single work day, and I would never do any work on the weekend. I'll get to this point later on in the video. So then once it came to preparing for the selection tests, I spent 1 hour before work and then 1 hour after work. This was during the pandemic, so I was working from home for quite a bit of this, so I did have that extra time where I would have been travelling to spend on my selection test revision. And then as it came to the interview, I had about a week's notice. This is where I really stepped it up, and I was doing about an hour in the morning and potentially 2 to 3 hours in the evening of prep. So just bear that in mind. Now, if you're listening to me and you're saying, I have no time for this at all, I don't want that to stop you. I want you to think about how you can make more time. Are there any things that maybe you could drop? Is there someone else who could do certain tasks for you? Can you pull on the support of family and friends? Really utilise the people in your life. And I think when it comes to this whole thing about do you have enough time, this is a way to protect yourself. You don't want to end up in a situation where you don't have enough time and you're overly stressed and your mental health is being impacted by this process. That shouldn't be the case. This process shouldn't be, it's not going to be enjoyable, but it shouldn't be something that is so stressful that you cannot cope. And that's why you need to think about whether you do have the time in order to protect yourself and your mental well-being. The next thing that I want you to think about is whether you're in the correct headspace. So when we think about Declin Psy season, everyone knows it's super duper intense, and you can't go in with either a lack of motivation or just the wrong mindset. And when I think about having a helpful mindset for the Declin Psy application season, I think about being resilient, understanding where my worth comes from, understanding why I want to be a clinical psychologist rather than a different kind of psychologist. So really figuring out your why, and also understanding what could happen and how you would feel if you were rejected. And I think going in with this mindset of knowing your worth and understanding why you're motivated to become a clinical psychologist is so important, and I think this is what's going to get you through application season. And I also want to say that I still feel strongly that I don't think anyone is fully ready to be a trainee or to do the Declan Psy process. I think even if you're a seasoned applicant, that you will still struggle, I reckon, every year thinking, oh, am I ready yet? So my advice to you, if you have the capacity and if you want to, is to just apply. If you meet the minimum requirements, just apply, because there's no harm in trying. There's no harm in having a practice application. It's really good to get yourself used to the process and the application form itself. Now, if you are ready to board the Declan Psy application train, then here are a few tips for how you can get through the season without self-combusting. My first tip is to be boundaried, and this comes back to setting certain amounts of time each day aside for your application and for Declan Psy prep in general. So like I said, I had 1 hour a day at first, and then I bumped that up, but I was very strict with myself, and I also never did any Declan Psy prep on the weekends. You need to be very careful with how the Declan Psy seeps into your life, because before you know it, it will take over everything, and that is not what we want. So be incredibly boundaried in order to protect your own self and identity and just mental health. Another thing that I did to be more boundaried was that I took a step back from Psychology Instagram. Now, if any of you guys are on the Psychology Instagram area, it can be quite stressful, especially around interview season, application season. It just is a lot because you're seeing what everyone else is doing and then you start comparing yourself, and it's just not healthy. So what I did was, yes, I was still posting, but I actually didn't do much scrolling during that period, and that really helped me. So I recommend that you guys do that too, if you can be boundaried with that area of your life as well. My second tip is to create a timetable or a schedule. So what I did was I looked at the deadline for the application, and then I worked my way back, and then I divided my time between each question. I spent about 2 weeks on the main question, and then the other 2 weeks were spent on the rest of the application. I really recommend having a schedule to keep you on track, to also keep you boundaried, and to also keep you motivated. My fourth tip is to do things outside of psychology. Guys, please don't let psychology take over your life. And I actually get quite scared to think that at points the Declan Psy was all I could focus on, and it was the only thing that mattered in my life, and that's just not true, because I have so much more. I have my friends, I have my family, I have my hobbies, I have you guys, I have so much more than just psychology in my career. I spoke about this in my rejection video, but it's such a turbulent career that if we place all of our worth in it and all of our focus and energy into the Declan Psy and psychology careers, when it hits the fan, we're going to be left with nothing, and well, you think you have nothing, but that's only because you put all your focus and attention on that one thing. So please do things outside of psychology. Speak to your friends and family during this season. Do the things that you love to do and explore other hobbies that you enjoy, because part of the application looks at your hobbies and interests outside of psychology. So genuinely, what are those things? And if you don't have anything, then go out and explore some new hobbies. Another tip is to inform your support system that you are applying. I'm not saying that you need to announce it on social media or tell everyone in your phone book that you're applying this year, but it's a really good idea to tell the people that you love and the people who normally get you through tough times, because there are going to be periods where you can't see your friends as much. There are going to be times that you're feeling agitated and quite stressed out, and you might take it out on the people around you. I don't know how you guys react to stress, but I'll hold my hands up, sometimes I do that. And so it's quite helpful to let people around you know that that's what you're going through and these are your plans, and then they know what's going on, they know what context you're living in, and that's how they can support you best. A massive tip for me is to know when to take a break. If you're feeling frustrated, tired, angry, upset, that's when you know that you just need to hit pause, take a step back, and take the evening off. Nothing bad will happen if you just take a break, and actually a fresh set of eyes can really make a difference. And I think that's when I stepped up my application, was actually when I took a break for a little bit and then returned to it. Be in tune with yourself, have that awareness, and don't ignore the signs. Your emotions are there for a reason. If you feel frustrated or upset at an application, then that means that you need to step away from that application for a bit. It's going to be fine. Leave it there for a day or even for a couple of hours and then return to it. And my final tip is to remember this. Just do your best and forget the rest. This is a little mantra I came up with during Declin Psy season, especially with the prep, because as people in this career, I feel like we're all striving to achieve the best or to be the best person that we can be. And actually that's all we can do. As long as you know in your heart of hearts that you have done everything that you can, you've really tried your best, considering your current circumstances. Don't compare your prep to someone else's. Don't compare it to mine, don't compare it to your friends, don't compare it to your supervisors. Focus on yourself. You are in a very different context to what I'm living in and to what your friend is living in and to what your supervisor is living in, right? And so as long as you know that you're doing your best in your own situation, then you can forget about the rest. I love this mantra so much, but I also know that it's really hard to just forget about the rest, to just forget about the worries, forget about the fact that, you know, this application season comes around once a year. It's a lot of pressure, I get it. And if you have done your best, you know what, that's all you can do. If you know that you have done all that you can to achieve the best possible result in your circumstance, with your knowledge, with your experiences, and then they still don't want you, okay, fine, then maybe it's just not the right time, or maybe they're just not the right course, or maybe you just need another year to develop. It's okay. You have tried your best and that's all you can do. So those are all of my tips for getting through this application season. Please, please, please be kind to yourself. I truly wish you guys the best in your applications this year. You guys have got it. I feel it. You have got this. I'm sending you all of the good vibes. Please give this video a like if you liked it and subscribe for more content like this. My next videos will be about the selection tests and then also the interviews, so be sure to subscribe. And until next time, guys, I will see you later. Bye.